The clandestine rendezvous between Eric Crawford and Princess Yara shatters as the doors to her private chambers burst open. Caught mid-embrace, the human soldier and Riemann royal freeze, their sweaty bodies entangled on silken sheets. Shocked gasps and angry hisses fill the air as Riemann guards and human diplomats crowd the entrance, their eyes wide with disbelief. Eric's heart pounds in his chest, his military training kicking in as he assesses the situation. Princess Yara, her iridescent scales shimmering in the soft light, clutches the sheets to her chest, her 6 eyes darting between Eric and the intruders. The air crackles with tension, the weight of their actions hanging heavy in the ornate chamber. "Seize the human," a Riemann guard bellows, his tentacles writhing in agitation. Eric tenses, ready to fight, but a stern look from one of the human diplomats stays his hand. He knows the consequences of his actions could be catastrophic. Outside the palace, the twin moons of the Riemann homeworld cast an eerie glow over the capital city. Unaware of the scandal unfolding within the royal walls, citizens go about their evening routines. But soon, this peace will be shattered. As Eric is roughly pulled from the bed and restrained, his mind races. Hours from now, human and Riemann leaders are set to discuss a crucial military alliance against the Xeraxian Empire. This incident threatens to unravel years of careful diplomacy. Princess Yara, her voice trembling but resolute, addresses the stunned onlookers. "This is my choice," she declares, her royal upbringing evident in her poise despite the compromising situation. Her words, however, do little to quell the growing outrage. News of the scandal spreads like wildfire through the palace. Riemann nobles demand Eric's immediate execution, their faces contorted with disgust at the thought of an off-worlder defiling their princess. Human diplomats huddle in corners, frantically discussing strategies to contain the political fallout. As Eric is led away, he catches a final glimpse of Yara. Their eyes meet, conveying a depth of emotion that transcends species. In that moment, he realizes their relationship had grown beyond mere physical attraction into something profound. The consequences of their actions ripple outward. Within hours, protests erupt in major cities across Earth and the Riemann homeworld. Conservative factions on both sides call for an end to all interspecies cooperation, their voices drowning out years of progress. Eric finds himself in a stark holding cell, guarded by a joint human-Riemann security team. The gravity of his situation sinks in. He faces not only a potential court-martial, but possibly execution. Princess Yara, he learns, is confined to her quarters, her royal status hanging by a thread. As tensions escalate, military forces on both sides are placed on high alert. The fragile peace between Earth and the Riemann Empire teeters on the brink of collapse. And in the vast darkness of space, the Xeraxian fleet advances, unaware of the chaos their impending arrival has indirectly caused. The scandal forces both human and Riemann societies to confront their deep-seated prejudices about interspecies relationships. Years of cultural exchange programs and carefully cultivated diplomacy threaten to crumble in the face of this single act. As the night wears on, the fate of 2 civilizations hangs in the balance, all because a human soldier and an alien princess dared to follow their hearts. As dawn broke over the Riemann capital, the consequences of Eric and Yara's forbidden romance reverberated through the halls of power. Emperor Zorn's thunderous roar echoed through the palace, summoning the human diplomatic team to an emergency meeting. The emperor, a colossal figure with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, stormed into the grand hall, his 6 eyes blazing with fury. Admiral Jonathan Hawke, the silver-haired leader of the human delegation, straightened his uniform and steeled himself for the confrontation. He had spent the night in frantic discussions with his team, acutely aware that the wrong word could ignite an interstellar conflict. "Explain this outrage," Emperor Zorn bellowed, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "How dare a human soldier defile our royal bloodline?" Hawke raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Your Imperial Majesty, I assure you we take this matter as seriously as you do. We must approach this delicate situation with clear heads." As tensions in the room reached a fever pitch, a new face entered the fray. Dr. Liana Parker, a human xenobiologist with a reputation for groundbreaking research on Riemann physiology, hurried into the chamber. Her arrival drew curious glances from both humans and Raymonds alike. "Your Majesty, Admiral," she said, slightly out of breath, "I have information that may be relevant to the situation." Emperor Zorn's eyes narrowed. "Speak, human." Dr. Parker cleared her throat. "Our latest research has uncovered something extraordinary. Human and Riemann DNA are surprisingly compatible. There's potential for viable offspring between our species." A hush fell over the room as the implications of her words sank in. Admiral Hawke's mind raced, seeing a potential diplomatic lifeline. Meanwhile, in the stark confines of his holding cell, Eric endured relentless questioning. Raymond guards loomed over him, their faces contorted with disgust. "Did you seduce the princess to infiltrate our royal family?" one guard hissed. Eric's teeth gritted. "No, what Yara and I have is real. It's not about politics or espionage. We care for each other." His words seemed to fall on deaf ears, only intensifying the hostility of his interrogators. In her opulent chambers, now feeling more like a gilded cage, Princess Yara faced a different kind of inquisition. Empress Neela, her scales a soft lilac in the morning light, sat across from her daughter, her expression a mix of concern and disappointment. "Yara, how could you be so reckless?" the Empress asked, her voice tinged with sadness. Yara's 6 eyes met her mother's gaze unflinchingly. "Mother, Eric is not just some human soldier. He understands me in ways no one else ever has. We share dreams of a future where our peoples stand united." The Empress sighed, her tentacles curling reflexively. "Dreams are all well and good, my daughter, but you have responsibilities to your people." As news of the scandal spread, the streets of both Earth and Raymond erupted in a cacophony of conflicting opinions. Outside the palace, protesters gathered, their voices a mixture of outrage and support. "No more alien influence," shouted one group of Raymonds, their signs depicting crossed-out human figures. Nearby, a cluster of younger Raymonds chanted, "Love knows no species." Similar scenes played out in major cities across Earth, with heated debates raging in homes, workplaces, and public forums. Back in the Grand Hall, Admiral Hawke saw an opportunity in the chaos. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din of arguments. "Your Majesty," he addressed Emperor Zorn, "what if we viewed this not as a scandal, but as an opportunity?" The Emperor's eyes swiveled towards him, curiosity temporarily overriding anger. Hawke continued, choosing his words carefully. "The Zyraxian threat looms over both our peoples. What if the union between Eric and Princess Yara became a symbol of our alliance? A powerful message to our common enemy that humans and Riemanns stand united?" Emperor Zorn's tentacles twitched, a sign of deep contemplation in Raymond body language. "You suggest we condone this liaison?" Dr. Parker interjected, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. "There's more, Your Majesty. Our preliminary studies suggest that human Riemann offspring could possess enhanced abilities. This could be crucial in our defense against the Zyraxians." The Emperor's expression shifted, the strategic implications clearly weighing on his mind. The looming Zyraxian threat had been a constant shadow over his reign, and the prospect of a stronger defense was tempting. After a long, tense silence, Emperor Zorn spoke. "I will consider your proposal, Admiral Hawke, but make no mistake, this soldier of yours will be put to the test. If he truly cares for my daughter, if this union can truly benefit our peoples, then let them prove it." Hawke nodded, relief washing over him. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a start. As the meeting adjourned, the Emperor's decree was clear. Eric and Yara would face a series of trials to prove their commitment to each other and to the alliance between their species. The nature of these trials remained unknown, but one thing was certain. The fate of 2 civilizations now rested on the shoulders of a human soldier and a Raymond princess who dared to fall in love. The tense atmosphere in the Grand Hall dissipated as Emperor Zorn's decree echoed through the palace. Eric and Yara would face a series of trials to prove their commitment not only to each other, but to the alliance between their species. As the diplomats dispersed, Admiral Hawke's relief was short-lived. He knew the real challenge was just beginning. The following morning, Eric found himself transported from his holding cell to the harsh Riemann wilderness. The twin moons hung low on the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the alien landscape. Jagged rock formations jutted from the ground like teeth, and a thick, greenish mist swirled around his feet. Eric took a deep breath, the toxic Riemann atmosphere burning his lungs despite the protective gear he wore. He glanced at the chrono on his wrist. 48 hours to survive in this hellscape and prove his worth. "You can do this, Crawford," he muttered to himself, setting off into the treacherous terrain. Miles away, in a fortified outpost, Princess Yara paced nervously. Her eyes were fixed on a holographic display showing Eric's vital signs and location. She had insisted on monitoring his progress, much to her father's chagrin. "Be safe, Eric," she whispered, her tentacles curling with worry. As Eric navigated the unforgiving landscape, scaling cliff faces and wading through caustic swamps, he remained unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Lord Karak, a high-ranking Raymond military officer, watched from a hidden vantage point, his face contorted with disgust. "Release the beasts," Karak hissed into his communicator. "Let's see how the human handles our planet's true nature." Moments later, Eric's instincts screamed danger. He spun around, coming face to face with a nightmarish creature. It stood twice his height, with multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth and tentacles that ended in vicious barbs. Eric's military training kicked in. He dove to the side as the creature lunged, its tentacles whipping through the air where he had stood seconds before. Rolling to his feet, Eric sprinted towards a narrow crevice in a nearby rock formation. The beast pursued, its massive form struggling to fit through the tight space. Eric used this to his advantage, maneuvering through the labyrinthine passages with agility born of desperation. Back at the outpost, Yara gasped as she watched Eric's heart rate spike on the monitor. "What's happening?" she demanded, turning to the Raymond technicians. One of them, his scales a muted green, looked up with concern. "It appears he's encountered one of our apex predators, Your Highness. Those creatures aren't native to this region." Yara's eyes narrowed. "Someone's interfering with the trial," she hissed, her royal demeanor giving way to anger. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news of Eric and Yara's relationship had ignited a firestorm of controversy. Protesters filled the streets of major cities, their chants echoing off skyscrapers. "No alien influence," roared one group, waving signs depicting crossed-out Riemann figures. Across the street, a gathering of young humans and resident Riemanns countered with their own chants. "Love knows no species." The controversy reached the highest levels of government. In a stark white office overlooking the Washington Monument, newly appointed Secretary of Interstellar Affairs Marcus Blackwood hit his fist on his desk. "I want Crawford brought back to Earth immediately," he growled to his aide. "He'll face court-martial for this fiasco." As political tensions escalated on both worlds, Dr. Liana Parker hunched over her microscope in a state-of-the-art lab. Her eyes widened as she observed the interaction between human and Riemann DNA samples. "This is incredible," she breathed, quickly typing notes into her datapad. "The genetic compatibility, it could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." Back on Riemann, Eric had survived his encounter with the apex predator, but his trials were just the beginning. As he approached the halfway point of his ordeal, Lord Karak decided to take matters into his own hands. "Prepare my ship," he ordered his loyal soldiers. "It's time we ended this farce once and for all." Princess Yara, still monitoring Eric's progress, noticed a new blip on the holo display. A Riemann military vessel was approaching Eric's position at high speed. "No," she whispered, realization dawning. Without hesitation, she sprinted from the outpost toward the vehicle bay. Royal guards moved to stop her, but she used her superior agility to evade them, leaping into a hover vehicle. "Princess, you can't," a guard began, but Yara was already powering up the engines. "I won't let them hurt him," she said, her voice steel. The hover vehicle roared to life, shooting out of the bay and into the toxic Riemann atmosphere. Eric, exhausted and battered from his ordeals, stumbled as he crested a hill. In the distance, he could see the finish point, a shimmering force field that marked the edge of the trial zone. A smile tugged at his lips, but it quickly faded as he heard the whine of approaching engines. Lord Carrick's ship touched down between Eric and his goal. The hatch opened, and Carrick emerged, flanked by heavily armed soldiers. "End of the line, human," Carrick sneered, raising a vicious-looking energy weapon. Eric dropped into a fighting stance, his muscles screaming in protest. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he'd be damned if he went down without a fight. Just as Carrick was about to fire, a familiar voice rang out. "Stand down, by order of the royal family." Eric's heart leaped as he saw Yara's hover vehicle descending from the sky, the princess herself at the controls. She brought the vehicle to a graceful landing between Eric and his would-be executioners. Carrick's face twisted with rage. "You dare interfere, Your Highness? This human has corrupted you, turned you against your own people." Yara stepped from the vehicle, her royal bearing on full display. "The only traitor here is you, Lord Carrick. You violated the terms of the trial and attempted to murder an unarmed man." For a moment it seemed Carrick's soldiers might lower their weapons. But then, with a roar of fury, Carrick lunged forward, swinging his weapon like a club at Yara's head. Eric moved without thinking. He dove forward, tackling Yara out of harm's way. They rolled across the rocky ground, coming up in fighting stances side by side. Carrick's soldiers, shocked by their commander's actions, hesitated. It was all the opening Eric and Yara needed. Moving in perfect sync, the human soldier and Raymond Princess engaged Carrick and his men. Eric's hand-to-hand combat skills complemented Yara's natural Riemann agility and strength. They flowed around each other, covering each other's blind spots and exploiting openings in their opponent's defenses. As they fought, neither noticed the blinking red light on the hover vehicle's console, a light that indicated an active transmission. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zorn watched the battle unfold with wide eyes, his tentacles twitching with a mix of emotions. Admiral Hawke, standing beside the Emperor, allowed himself a small smile. The tide was turning, but the real challenges were just beginning. As the dust settled from their confrontation with Lord Carrick, Eric and Yara found themselves whisked back to the royal palace. The adrenaline of their victory still coursed through their veins, but uncertainty loomed as they awaited Emperor Zorn's judgment. The grand hall buzzed with tension as Eric and Yara stood before the Emperor. His tentacles writhed with terrifying emotion as he regarded the pair. "You have proven yourselves capable warriors," Emperor Zorn began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But the true test of your union lies ahead." With a gesture, the Emperor revealed a hidden door behind his throne. It slid open to reveal a state-of-the-art laboratory, a fusion of human and Raymond technology. Dr. Leona Parker stood at the center, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Your next trial," Emperor Zorn continued, "will push the boundaries of both your species." Eric and Yara exchanged glances, a mix of apprehension and tenacity passing between them. They followed Dr. Parker into the lab, where a massive spherical chamber dominated the room. "This is the neurometric harmony simulator," Dr. Parker explained, her voice brimming with pride. "It's designed to test your compatibility on a level never before attempted." As technicians fitted Eric and Yara with neural interfaces, Admiral Hawke approached Emperor Zorn. "Your Majesty, the data we gather here could be invaluable in our fight against the Xeraxians." The Emperor nodded, his eyes fixed on the couple as they entered the simulation chamber. "Let us hope their bond is as strong as they claim." Inside the chamber, Eric and Yara found themselves transported to a bustling space station. The hum of machinery and the chatter of various species filled the air. "Welcome to Outpost Gamma," a computerized voice announced. "Your mission, negotiate a resource-sharing agreement between human and Riemann delegations." Eric straightened his uniform, feeling the weight of his responsibility. Yara's tentacles twitched nervously as they approached the conference room. "Ready, sir?" Eric asked, offering his hand. Yara intertwined her tentacle with his fingers. "Together," she replied. The negotiations were a minefield of cultural misunderstandings and competing interests. Eric found himself torn between his loyalty to Earth and his love for Yara. Meanwhile, Yara struggled to balance her royal duties with her desire for unity. As tensions rose, Eric noticed a shift in the simulation. The space station began to shake, alarms blaring. "Asteroid field detected," the computer warned. "All personnel to emergency stations." Without hesitation, Eric and Yara raced to the control room. They found themselves at the helm of a spacecraft, hurtling towards a dense field of asteroids. "I'll take navigation," Yara said, her tentacles flying over the controls. Eric nodded, gripping the pilot's yoke. "I've got propulsion and weapons." They plunged into the asteroid field, their movements in perfect sync. Eric's combat training complemented Yara's innate spatial awareness. They weaved through the deadly obstacles, their minds melding in the heat of the moment. Outside the simulation chamber, Dr. Parker's team monitored their neural activity with growing excitement. "The synchronization is off the charts," one technician exclaimed. "We've never seen anything like this." Admiral Hawk leaned in, studying the data. "This could change everything in our fight against the Xeraxians." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the lab. Dr. Parker's face paled as she saw error messages flooding her screens. "Someone's hacked the system," she shouted. "The safety protocols are offline." Inside the simulation, Eric and Yara felt a searing pain as the asteroid field dissolved, replaced by a war-torn landscape. Xeraxian warships filled the sky, raining destruction upon them. "This isn't part of the test," Eric growled, diving for cover as energy blasts scorched the ground around them. Yara's eyes widened in realization. "It's Karak's supporters. They're trying to kill us in the simulation." The pain intensified as simulated wounds began to feel all too real. Eric and Yara fought back-to-back against waves of Xeraxian soldiers, their movements becoming more fluid and coordinated with each passing moment. In the lab, Dr. Parker worked frantically to regain control of the system. "Their neural patterns are merging," she reported, her voice a mix of concern and fascination. "If we don't stop this soon, the effects could be irreversible." Emperor Zorn faced a terrible choice. "Can you shut it down?" he demanded. Dr. Parker shook her head. "Not without risking permanent neural damage." The Emperor's tentacles coiled tightly. "Then we must trust in them." Inside the simulation, Eric and Yara's minds intertwined, memories and emotions flowing between them. They saw flashes of each other's childhoods, felt the weight of their hopes and fears. "Eric," Yara gasped, her voice echoing in his mind. "I can feel everything you feel." "We're stronger together," Eric replied, his thoughts merging with hers. "Let's end this." With their newfound connection, Eric and Yara moved as one. They anticipated each other's actions, covering weaknesses and amplifying strengths. The Xeraxian forces fell before their combined might. As the last enemy fell, the simulation dissolved. Eric and Yara found themselves back in the chamber, physically exhausted, but mentally linked in ways they never thought possible. Dr. Parker rushed to their side, her instruments scanning their neural activity. "Incredible," she breathed. "The merge has enhanced their cognitive abilities, reaction times, everything." Admiral Hawk turned to Emperor Zorn, his eyes alight with possibility. "Your Majesty, this could be the key to defeating the Xeraxians." As Eric and Yara recovered, surrounded by astonished scientists and officials, they knew their trials were far from finished. The sabotage attempt had exposed the depths of opposition to their union. But as they looked into each other's eyes, now understanding each other on a level no one else could comprehend, they silently vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. Together, their shared mental link, forged in the crucible of the neurometric harmony simulator, had transformed them into something greater than the sum of their parts. As they were helped out of the simulation chamber, Eric's legs wobbled, and Yara's tentacles trembled with exhaustion. Dr. Parker rushed to their side, her team swarming around them with medical scanners and neural monitoring devices. "How do you feel?" Dr. Parker asked, her eyes darting between the readings on her datapad and the couple's faces. Eric blinked, his vision slowly refocusing. "It's strange," he said, glancing at Yara. "I can still feel her thoughts, her emotions." Yara nodded, her tentacles reaching out to intertwine with Eric's fingers. "It's as if a part of him is always with me now," she added, her voice filled with wonder. Dr. Parker's excitement was palpable as she guided them to a nearby recovery area. "This is unprecedented," she explained, her words tumbling out rapidly. "The neural patterns we observed during the simulation, they've persisted even after disconnection. We need to run more tests to understand the full implications of this." As Eric and Yara rested on biobeds, surrounded by humming medical equipment, Admiral Hawk approached Emperor Zorn. The two leaders spoke in hushed tones, their eyes never leaving the exhausted couple. "Your Majesty," Hawk began, "if we can replicate this connection, it could revolutionize our combat strategies against the Xyraxians." Emperor Zorn's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. "Indeed, Admiral, but we must not rush. This bond between Eric and Yara is unique, forged through trials and shared experiences. We cannot simply manufacture such a connection." The Emperor's gaze hardened as he turned to face Hawk directly. "No, we must test the limits of their abilities. Only then can we truly understand the potential of human-Riemann cooperation." Over the next few days, Eric and Yara underwent a battery of tests and examinations. Dr. Parker and her team pushed the boundaries of their newfound connection, marveling at their ability to communicate without words, to anticipate each other's actions with uncanny precision. As they recovered, news of their extraordinary bond spread throughout the palace. Whispers of the hybrid couple echoed through the halls, a mixture of awe and trepidation in the voices of both humans and Riemanns. On the 5th day of their recovery, Eric and Yara were summoned to the Emperor's private chambers. They entered hand in tentacle, their steps perfectly in sync. Emperor Zorn stood before a massive holographic display, Admiral Hawk at his side. The image showed a gas giant, its swirling storms dwarfing a small, craggy moon. "Eric, Yara," the Emperor began, his voice grave, "your bond has proven stronger than we could have imagined. Now we must put it to the ultimate test." The hologram zoomed in on the moon, revealing a hidden structure nestled within a deep crater. "Our scouts have discovered a secret Xyraxian outpost," Hawk explained. "We believe they're planning a major offensive against both Earth and Riemann." Yara's tentacles tightened around Eric's hand as the implication sank in. Eric felt her concern through their link and sent back a wave of reassurance. "Your mission," Emperor Zorn continued, "is to infiltrate this outpost and gather critical intelligence on their battle plans and technology." Eric straightened, his military training kicking in. "What resources will we have at our disposal, Your Majesty?" Admiral Hawk stepped forward, activating a second hologram. A sleek spacecraft materialized, its design a seamless blend of human and Riemann engineering. "This is the Shadow Weaver," Hawk said, pride evident in his voice. "It's equipped with the latest in Earth stealth technology and Riemann sensor jamming systems. It should get you past the Xyraxian defenses undetected." As Eric and Yara studied the ship's specifications, Emperor Zorn's tentacles coiled tightly. "This mission is not just a test of your abilities," he said solemnly. "It may well determine the fate of both our worlds." The couple exchanged a look, their mental link humming with shared tenacity. They knew the weight of responsibility that rested on their shoulders, but they also knew that together they were capable of the extraordinary. "We won't let you down, Your Majesty," Eric said, his voice firm. Yara nodded, her tentacles rippling with tenacity. "We'll bring back the information you need." As they left the Emperor's chambers to prepare for their mission, neither Eric nor Yara noticed the worried glances exchanged between Emperor Zorn and Admiral Hawk. The stakes were higher than ever, and the true test of their bond was about to begin. In the hangar bay, Eric and Yara boarded the Shadow Weaver, marveling at its seamless integration of human and Riemann technology. As they strapped themselves into the pilot seats, their movements were perfectly coordinated, each anticipating the other's needs without a word spoken. The ship's engines hummed to life, a low, powerful thrum that resonated through their bodies. As the hangar bay doors slid open, revealing the star-studded expanse of space, Eric and Yara shared a moment of quiet awe. "Ready?" Eric asked, though he already knew the answer through their mental link. Yara's tentacles danced over the control panel, initializing the stealth systems. "Always," she replied, a smile in her voice. The Shadow Weaver lifted off, accelerating smoothly into the void. As they left Raymond's atmosphere behind, neither Eric nor Yara could shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. Not just for them, but for the future of human-Riemann relations and the war against the Xyraxians. Little did they know, back on both Earth and Riemann, forces were already in motion that would test their bond in ways they could never have imagined. As the Shadow Weaver disappeared into the depths of space, the true scope of their challenge was only beginning to unfold. As the Shadow Weaver disappeared into the depths of space, Eric and Yara focused on their mission, unaware of the life-altering events awaiting them upon their return. The infiltration of the Zeraxian outpost proved more challenging than anticipated, but their unique bond allowed them to overcome every obstacle. Using their shared consciousness, they navigated the facility's complex security systems and extracted critical intelligence on the Zeraxians' battle plans and technology. As they made their escape, Eric's combat skills combined with Yara's innate understanding of alien systems allowed them to evade detection and return safely to Riemann space. Their mission was hailed as a resounding success, cementing their status as heroes to both humans and Riemanns alike. However, their triumph was short-lived. Upon their return, Dr. Parker's latest examination revealed startling physiological changes in both Eric and Yara. Their prolonged mental link had begun to alter their bodies on a cellular level, making them more compatible with each other in ways no one had anticipated. Emperor Zorn, intrigued by these findings, summoned the couple to his private chambers. "Your success against the Zeraxians is commendable," he began, his tentacles rippling with excitement. "But Dr. Parker's discovery opens up new possibilities for our alliance." Eric and Yara exchanged glances, their mental link humming with shared apprehension. "What kind of possibilities, Your Majesty?" Yara asked, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. The Emperor's eyes glinted. "The possibility of human-Riemann hybridization. I propose a series of medical examinations and controlled mating attempts between you two." Eric's teeth gritted, a mixture of shock and uncertainty flooding through him. Yara's tentacles coiled tightly around his hand, her own emotions a whirlwind of confusion and curiosity. "Father," Yara began, her voice barely above a whisper, "are you certain this is necessary?" Emperor Zorn's expression softened. "My dear, this could be the key to securing lasting peace between our species. The potential benefits to both our worlds are immeasurable." Eric stepped forward, his military training kicking in as he sought to understand the full scope of the situation. "What exactly would these tests involve, Your Majesty?" "You will be moved to a specially designed medical facility within the palace," the Emperor explained. "There, under Dr. Parker's supervision, you will undergo extensive physical examinations and attempt to conceive a child." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Eric felt a surge of emotions from Yara through their link. Fear, excitement, and a deep sense of duty to her people. Before they could fully process the Emperor's proposal, alarms blared throughout the palace. A holographic display flickered to life, showing chaos erupting in the streets of both Earth and Riemann cities. "Protests," Emperor Zorn growled, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "News of the tests has leaked." Eric watched in dismay as humans and Riemanns clashed, their anger and fear palpable even through the holographic images. Conservative factions on both worlds denounced the potential of human-Riemann hybrids as an abomination, while others hailed it as the next step in evolution and interspecies cooperation. Admiral Hawk's face appeared on a separate screen, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, the situation on Earth is deteriorating. I must return immediately to address the growing political crisis." Eric felt a pang of loss as his primary advocate on Riemann prepared to leave. He turned to Yara, finding strength in her unwavering gaze. "We'll do it," Eric said, his voice firm. "We'll undergo the tests." Yara nodded, her tentacles intertwining with his fingers. "For the sake of both our peoples," she added. Emperor Zorn's expression was a mixture of pride and concern. "Very well. Dr. Parker will begin the preparations immediately." As they were escorted to the medical facility, Eric and Yara clung to each other, both physically and mentally. They could feel the weight of two worlds resting on their shoulders, the future of human-Riemann relations hanging in the balance. Little did they know that Secretary Blackwood, watching the events unfold from Earth, was already setting his own plans in motion. In the shadows of power, he reached out to Lord Carrick's supporters, offering them advanced Earth weaponry and a chance to eliminate the very symbol of human-Riemann unity. As Eric and Yara entered the sterile confines of the medical facility, They steeled themselves for the trials ahead. Their bond, forged in the crucible of conflict, would now be tested in ways they never imagined. The next phase of their journey was about to begin, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. As Eric and Yara entered the sterile confines of the medical facility, a deafening explosion rocked the building. The couple's instincts kicked in immediately, their mental link allowing them to react as one. Eric's military training and Yara's heightened senses guided them through the chaos, identifying the source of the blast and neutralizing a second explosive device hidden nearby. In the aftermath of the attack, alarms blared throughout the palace complex. Emperor Zorn's security forces swarmed the area, evacuating personnel and securing the perimeter. Amid the pandemonium, Dr. Parker rushed to Eric and Yara's side, her face etched with concern. "Are you two all right?" she asked, her eyes darting between them as she conducted a quick visual assessment. Eric nodded, his arm protectively around Yara. "We're fine, but we need to get out of here. This place isn't safe anymore." As if on cue, a squad of Raymond guards approached, led by a stern-faced officer. "By order of Emperor Zorn, you are to be immediately relocated to a secure underground bunker," he announced, his tentacles twitching with urgency. The journey to the bunker was a blur of twisting corridors and heavily fortified checkpoints. Eric and Yara moved in perfect synchronization, their shared consciousness allowing them to navigate the complex path without hesitation. As they descended deeper into the heart of the palace, the sounds of chaos above gradually faded away. Once safely ensconced in the bunker, Dr. Parker wasted no time in setting up her equipment. The underground facility, while sparse, was equipped with advanced medical technology that rivaled the main lab. "I need to run a full scan on both of you," Dr. Parker explained, her fingers flying over a control panel. "The stress of the attack may have accelerated the physiological changes we've been observing." As Eric and Yara lay side by side on the examination tables, holographic displays flickered to life above them. Dr. Parker's eyes widened as she analyzed the data streaming across the screens. "This is unprecedented," she murmured, her voice a mixture of awe and concern. "Eric, your bioluminescent patches have expanded significantly. They seem to be granting you limited chameleonic abilities." Eric flexed his arm, watching in amazement as his skin shifted to match the color and texture of the table beneath him. "Incredible," he breathed. Dr. Parker turned her attention to Yara. "And you, Princess, your strength and agility have increased exponentially. You're approaching what we'd consider superhuman levels by Earth standards." Yara's tentacles curled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "What about the pregnancy?" she asked hesitantly. The doctor's expression grew serious. "That's where things get complicated. The fetus is developing at an accelerated rate, far beyond anything we've seen before. It's already showing signs of both human and Raymond characteristics." Before they could fully process this information, a holographic projection of Emperor Zorn materialized in the center of the room. His tentacles writhed with agitation as he addressed them. "Eric, Yara, I'm glad to see you're safe," he began, his voice tight with tension. "I've called an emergency meeting of the High Council. We have evidence linking the attack to both human and Raymond conspirators, including Secretary Blackwood and Lord Carrack's faction." Eric's fist clenched at the mention of Blackwood's name. "A joint human-Raymond plot," he growled. "They're trying to sabotage the alliance." Emperor Zorn nodded gravely. "Precisely. But their actions may have the opposite effect. This shared threat could strengthen the argument for cooperation between our species." As the Emperor's projection faded, Dr. Parker cleared her throat. "There's something else you need to know," she said, her voice heavy with concern. "The accelerated development of the fetus poses significant risk to Yara's health. We may need to consider unconventional measures to ensure both mother and child survive." Eric felt a surge of fear and protectiveness through his link with Yara. He took her hand, their fingers intertwining as they faced this new challenge together. "What kind of measures?" Yara asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil Eric could sense beneath the surface. Dr. Parker took a deep breath. "I propose a procedure that would place Yara in suspended animation while we accelerate the fetus's development in an artificial womb. It's risky, combining the most advanced human and Riemann medical technologies, but it may be our best option. The weight of the decision settled over them like a shroud. Eric looked into Yara's eyes, feeling the complexity of her emotions through their bond. Fear, hope, and an unwavering dedication. Before they could respond, another alarm sounded. A security officer's voice crackled over the intercom. Incoming transmission from Admiral Hawk. Priority 1. The holographic display flickered to life once more, revealing the Admiral's face, lined with exhaustion and streaked with what looked like soot. Eric, Yara, he began, his voice urgent. There's been an attempt on my life. The Purists, a radical anti-cooperation group, they're escalating their attacks, and I have reason to believe they're not working alone. Eric leaned forward, his military instincts on high alert. What do you mean, Admiral? Hawk's eyes darted to the side as if checking for eavesdroppers. I've uncovered evidence of Blackwood's direct involvement with the Riemann rebels. They're planning something big, Eric. Something aimed at stopping you, Yara, and your child before this procedure can take place. As the Admiral's words sank in, Eric felt Yara's grip tighten on his hand. Through their mental link, he sensed her determination hardening, matching his own persistence. We need to move quickly, Eric said, his voice low and intense. Dr. Parker, how soon can we begin the procedure? The doctor's fingers flew over her datapad. I can have everything ready within the hour, but Eric, you need to understand the risks. This has never been attempted before. We don't know. Eric cut her off, his voice firm. We don't have a choice. Yara's condition is deteriorating, and now we have enemies closing in from all sides. We need to act now. As Dr. Parker and her team began their preparations, Eric turned to Yara. He could feel her fear, but also her strength and her love for their unborn child. Whatever happens, he said softly, pressing his forehead to hers, we face it together. Yara's tentacles caressed his face gently. Always, she whispered. As the medical team bustled around them, Eric's mind raced with the challenges that lay ahead. He knew that the next few hours would test every skill he had acquired, every change his body had undergone. With enemies both within and without the palace walls, he would need all his training and newfound abilities to protect Yara and their child, and with them, the future of human-Riemann relations. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the survival of both species in the face of the looming Xeraxian threat. As Dr. Parker approached with a sedative for Yara, Eric steeled himself for the battle to come, knowing that the most difficult part of their journey was only just beginning. As Dr. Parker approached with a sedative for Yara, Eric's newly enhanced senses suddenly flared to life. A faint scent, barely perceptible but distinctly out of place, caught his attention. His muscles tensed, instincts honed by military training and sharpened by his transformation, screaming danger. Wait, Eric said, holding up a hand to halt Dr. Parker. His eyes scanned the room, picking up minute details he would have missed before. A shadow that didn't quite match the others, a slight disturbance in the air currents. Something was very wrong. Without a word, Eric's skin began to shift, taking on the muted grays and whites of the medical facility's walls. He moved with fluid grace, blending seamlessly into the background as he made his way toward the source of his unease. Dr. Parker and Yara watched in stunned silence as Eric seemed to vanish before their eyes. Through their mental link, Yara could feel Eric's focused grit and the sharp edge of his vigilance. As Eric crept along the walls, his heightened hearing picked up the faintest whisper of movement. He rounded a corner and froze, his camouflage form perfectly still as he observed a group of figures huddled around a complex piece of medical equipment. Their clothing was a mix of human and Riemann styles, but something about their movement struck Eric as off. He focused, willing his eyes to pick up more detail, and noticed a subtle shimmer around one of the figures, a human woman whose bearing screamed authority. Eric's blood ran cold as he recognized her. She was a high-ranking officer from Secretary Blackwood's staff. The implications were clear. This was a joint human-Riemann operation to sabotage the procedure that could save Yara and their child. Without hesitation, Eric activated the comm device integrated into his wrist. Emperor Zorn, Dr. Parker, "We have intruders in the medical facility," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "They're targeting the artificial womb technology. I count 6 hostiles, mixed human and Riemann, requesting immediate backup." Emperor Zorn's voice crackled through the comm, tense but controlled. "Understood, Eric. My elite guard is en route. Delay them if you can, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary." As Eric watched, the infiltrators began attaching small devices to the medical equipment. He knew he couldn't wait for backup. With a deep breath, Eric called upon his new abilities, feeling the bioluminescent patches on his skin begin to pulse with energy. In a burst of blinding light, Eric launched himself at the nearest intruder. The sudden flash disoriented the group, and Eric used the confusion to his advantage. His fist connected with the jaw of a Riemann saboteur, sending him crumpling to the ground. The others reacted quickly, pulling out weapons that looked like a hybrid of human and Riemann technology. Eric's body moved with inhuman speed, dodging energy blasts and retaliating with precisely aimed strikes. Through his link with Yara, Eric could sense her fear and concern. He sent back a wave of reassurance, even as he grappled with 2 human attackers. His skin shifted rapidly, the chameleonic effect making it difficult for his opponents to track his movements. As the battle raged, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Parker's voice came urgently through the comm. "Eric, Yara's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We need to start the procedure now." Eric felt a surge of panic, quickly suppressed by his training. He redoubled his efforts, his bioluminescent patches flashing in a disorienting pattern that left his attackers reeling. With a series of swift, brutal strikes, Eric incapacitated 4 of the 6 intruders. But the leader, the woman from Blackwood's staff, and 1 Riemann accomplice managed to slip away in the chaos. Eric's enhanced senses picked up their trail, leading towards the main procedure room where Yara lay waiting. He pursued, his heart pounding with a mixture of exertion and fear for his mate and unborn child. As he rounded the final corner, Eric saw the 2 saboteurs burst into the procedure room. Dr. Parker and her team looked up in shock, their hands still busy with the delicate process of transferring the rapidly developing fetus to the artificial womb. Time seemed to slow as Eric launched himself forward. The Riemann intruder raised a weapon, aiming at the fragile artificial womb. Eric's body moved on pure instinct, fueled by the profound connection he felt with Yara and their child. His fist connected with the Riemann's face, sending him flying across the room. But the human leader was already moving, her hands reaching for the controls of the artificial womb. Suddenly, the woman's form shimmered and changed. Where a human had stood moments before, a Xeraxian now revealed itself, its alien features twisted in a snarl of hatred. Eric's mind reeled at the implications, but there was no time to process the revelation. He engaged the Xeraxian in hand-to-hand combat, their struggle threatening to damage the vital equipment surrounding them. As they fought, Eric became aware of a strange energy filling the room. He glanced at the artificial womb and saw the fetus within pulsing with an otherworldly light. The hybrid child's rapidly developing brain was emitting energy patterns unlike anything he had ever seen. The Xeraxian shapeshifter faltered, its form wavering as if disrupted by the child's energy. Eric seized the opportunity, channeling every ounce of his newfound strength into a final, decisive blow. The Xeraxian crumpled, its form reverting to its natural state as it lost consciousness. Eric stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving, as Dr. Parker rushed to stabilize the artificial womb. "The transfer is complete," Dr. Parker announced, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and awe. "But Yara?" Eric turned to see his mate lying motionless on the medical bed, her skin pale and her tentacles limp. The stress of the accelerated procedure and the chaos of the attack had taken their toll. "She's in a coma," Dr. Parker said softly. "Her body needs time to recover from the shock." Eric moved to Yara's side, taking her hand in his. Through their link, he could still feel her presence, but it was faint, like a distant star. Before he could fully process the situation, Emperor Zorn's voice came through the comm. "Eric, we've detected a Xeraxian scout ship entering our airspace. We're mobilizing our defenses, but I fear this is just the beginning." Eric looked from Yara's unconscious form to the artificial womb, where their child continued to develop at an astonishing rate. He knew that the battle was just getting started. The fate of two civilizations now rested on the shoulders of his unborn child, and he would stop at nothing to protect them both. As alarms sounded throughout the facility, signaling the approach of the Xeraxian threat, Eric steeled himself for the challenges ahead. Whatever came next, he would face it head-on, drawing strength from the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment and the unbreakable bond he shared with Yara and their extraordinary child. As Eric stood there, torn between his unconscious mate and the rapidly developing fetus, the facility erupted into a flurry of activity. Alarms blared throughout the complex as Dr. Parker and her team rushed to stabilize the artificial womb. The hybrid fetus pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its growth accelerating beyond anything they had anticipated. "Eric, we need to move now." Emperor Zorn's voice crackled through the comm system. "The energy pulses from the child are interfering with our cloaking technology. We've been detected." Eric's enhanced senses picked up the distant hum of approaching Xeraxian ships. He looked at Yara's pale form, then at the glowing artificial womb. "What's the plan, Emperor?" "We're evacuating to a secondary facility in the mountain ranges," Zorn replied. "It's our only chance to protect Yara and the child." As if on cue, the medical bay doors burst open. A team of Raymond and human engineers rushed in, carrying components of what looked like a high-tech exoskeleton. "The battlesuit," one of them explained, noticing Eric's questioning gaze. "We've been working on it for the hybrid. It's not complete, but—" Another alarm cut them off. Dr. Parker's eyes widened as she looked at the monitors. "The womb is malfunctioning. The fetus is showing signs of premature emergence." Eric's heart raced. He reached out through his mental link with Yara, desperately trying to sense her presence. There was only the faintest flicker of consciousness. "We need to move her now," Dr. Parker ordered. "I'll have to attempt an emergency delivery during the evacuation." As the medical team prepared Yara for transport, Eric's body tensed. His skin shifted, taking on the muted tones of the facility's walls. "I'll buy you some time, Joram. Time," he said, moving towards the exit. Outside, chaos reigned. Raymond Defense Forces scrambled to their positions as the first wave of Xeraxian assault craft breached the atmosphere. Eric's bioluminescent patches flashed, sending signals to coordinate the defenders. He leapt into action, his chameleonic abilities allowing him to blend seamlessly with the environment. Eric moved like a ghost through the Xeraxian lines, disorienting them with sudden flashes of light and swift, brutal attacks. But for every enemy he took down, two more seemed to take their place. The Xeraxians pressed forward, their advanced weapons tearing through the Raymond defenses. Eric's comm crackled to life. "Eric, it's Admiral Hawk. I'm leading a squadron to your position. Hold on." As if in answer to Hawk's promise, the sky lit up with the streaks of Earth's most advanced fighters engaging the Xeraxian fleet. The sudden assault created a temporary defensive perimeter, giving the evacuation a fighting chance. Eric fought his way back to the medical bay, his enhanced body pushed to its limits. As he entered, he saw Dr. Parker hunched over Yara, her face taut with concentration. "The child," Dr. Parker said, her voice strained. "It's coming now. We can't wait." Eric rushed to Yara's side, taking her hand in his. He closed his eyes, focusing all his energy on their mental link. "Yara," he called out silently, "we need you. Our child needs you." To his amazement, he felt a response. Yara's eyes fluttered open, her tentacles weakly curling around his arm. Through their bond, Eric felt her pain, her dedication, and her love. "That's it, Yara," Dr. Parker encouraged. "Work with me now." The next few moments were a blur of intense concentration and shared effort. Eric supported Yara physically and mentally as she summoned every ounce of her strength. Dr. Parker worked with practiced efficiency, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. Suddenly, a pulse of energy swept through the room, momentarily disabling the equipment. In that instant of eerie silence, a cry pierced the air, strong, defiant, and utterly alien. Eric stared in awe at the child in Dr. Parker's arms. The infant girl's skin shimmered with bioluminescence. her eyes already open and alert, filled with an intelligence that seemed impossible for a newborn. Incredible, Dr. Parker breathed, quickly wrapping the child in a protective blanket. Her development is off the charts. The moment of wonder was short-lived. The facility shook with the impact of Xeraxian weapons fire. The engineers rushed forward with the prototype battlesuit, its systems already whirring to life as they brought it closer to the child. "We need to go now," Eric said, gently lifting Yara into his arms. Her tentacles curled weakly around his neck as she gazed at their daughter. As Dr. Parker carefully placed the infant into the battlesuit, something extraordinary happened. The child's eyes glowed, and the suit's systems flared to life, interfacing seamlessly with her unique physiology. The infant let out another cry, but this time it was accompanied by a wave of energy that rippled outward. The advancing Xeraxian forces suddenly faltered, their weapons and communications disrupted by the child's power. "Move!" Eric shouted, leading the way as they rushed from the crumbling facility. Dr. Parker followed close behind, cradling the suited infant whose powers were growing by the second. As they emerged into the open air, Eric saw the path to their escape vehicles blocked by Xeraxian troops. He prepared to fight, but before he could act, another pulse emanated from his daughter. The Xeraxians dropped to the ground, their systems completely overloaded. They sprinted for the waiting transports, the child's energy field protecting them from enemy fire. As they boarded, Eric received an urgent transmission from Admiral Hawk. "Eric, the energy signature from your child's birth. It's disrupting Xeraxian systems across the sector. We've got a chance here, but they're regrouping. Get to the mountain facility. We'll hold them off as long as we can." As their transport lifted off, Eric held Yara close, both of them watching in awe as their daughter interfaced with the battlesuit systems. The infant's eyes darted around, taking in information at an astonishing rate. "What have we created?" Yara whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. Eric looked at his mate, then at their extraordinary child. "Our future," he replied softly, "and maybe the key to our survival." The transport sped toward the distant mountains, leaving behind the ruins of the facility in the chaos of battle. But Eric knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, protecting and nurturing a being of unprecedented power, all while facing the full might of the Xeraxian invasion force. As they approached the mountain facility, Eric's mind raced with the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. Whatever came next, he knew that the fate of two civilizations now rested in the hands of this miraculous child, their daughter. As their transport soared over the rugged Raymond landscape, Eric and Yara marveled at their newborn daughter, nestled securely in the prototype battlesuit. The infant's eyes darted about, taking in her surroundings with an intelligence that belied her age. Upon reaching the mountain facility, they were immediately whisked away to a secure medical bay. Dr. Parker and her team worked tirelessly, monitoring the child's rapid development with a mixture of awe and concern. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Parker explained, gesturing to a holographic display of the infant's neural activity. "Her growth rate is off the charts. At this pace, she'll reach adolescence in a matter of days." Eric and Yara exchanged worried glances. "Is she stable?" Yara asked, her tentacles curling anxiously. Before Dr. Parker could respond, the lights in the room flickered. The child let out a cry, and a wave of energy pulsed through the facility, temporarily disabling the equipment. "That answers your question," Eric said grimly. "We need to find a way to contain these energy surges." Over the next few days, the mountain facility became a hive of activity. Scientists and military personnel worked around the clock, studying the rapidly growing hybrid child and attempting to harness her extraordinary abilities. Eric and Yara found themselves facing unexpected challenges as parents. Their daughter, whom they named Nova, grew at an astonishing rate. Within a week, she resembled a young adolescent, her features a perfect blend of human and Riemann characteristics. Nova's periods of physical and emotional instability coincided with powerful energy surges that disrupted the facility's systems. During one such episode, alarms blared throughout the complex. "We've been detected," a technician shouted. "The energy signature from the last surge revealed our location to enemy forces." Emperor Zorn's hologram flickered to life in the command center. "We need a more stable environment for Nova," he said. his expression grave. I propose we move her to an ancient Raymond temple in the uncharted jungles. The temple's naturally occurring energy-dampening materials could help contain her power surges. As preparations for the move began, Eric and Yara struggled to connect with their rapidly maturing daughter. Nova often withdrew into herself, grappling with her developing powers. Eric devised physical exercises to help Nova channel her energy, drawing on his military training. Focus, Nova, he instructed, guiding her through a series of complex movements. Feel the energy flowing through you. Direct it. Don't let it control you. Meanwhile, Yara taught Nova Riemann meditation techniques. Clear your mind, she said softly, her tentacles gently touching Nova's temples. Find the calm at the center of the storm. During one of Nova's training sessions, her powers suddenly spiked. A massive energy pulse ripped through the facility, plunging it into darkness. In the ensuing chaos, a group of Xeraxian infiltrators launched their attack. Eric's enhanced senses picked up the sound of approaching footsteps. Nova, stay close, he whispered, pulling his daughter behind him. Yara's tentacles flared with bioluminescence, providing a dim light. The family moved in unison, their enhanced abilities complementing each other as they fought off the Xeraxian intruders. Nova watched in awe as her parents worked together seamlessly. Something clicked in her mind, and she felt a new level of control over her powers. Raising her hands, she created localized force fields, protecting her parents and trapping the Xeraxian attackers. As the last infiltrator fell, Admiral Hawk burst into the room with reinforcements. We've driven them back, he reported, but we've got bigger problems. The main Xeraxian invasion fleet has altered course. They're headed straight for Riemann. With the immediate threat neutralized, the evacuation to the jungle temple began. Eric, Yara, and Nova boarded a specially designed transport vessel, accompanied by a small team of scientists and elite guards. As they journeyed towards the hidden temple, Nova's powers continued to evolve. She discovered she could manipulate the energy fields around the ship, enhancing its stealth capabilities and speed. Remarkable, Dr. Parker murmured, monitoring Nova's energy output. She's not just controlling her powers, she's adapting them to new situations. The transport ship descended into a dense jungle canopy, revealing an ancient stone structure overgrown with vibrant Riemann flora. As they entered the temple, a crystalline artifact at its heart began to pulse with energy. Nova approached the artifact, drawn by an inexplicable connection. As she touched its surface, her body underwent another swift transformation. Her features settled into a perfect blend of human and Riemann characteristics, and her control over her powers increased dramatically. Closing her eyes, Nova projected her consciousness outward. I can sense them, she said, her voice filled with wonder. The Xeraxian fleet. I can see their movements across vast distances. Eric and Yara exchanged looks of amazement and concern. Their daughter had become more than they could have ever imagined. But at what cost? Nova's eyes snapped open. There's a vulnerability in their fleet's defenses, she announced. We could exploit it, turn the tide of the war. But, she hesitated, her gaze meeting her parents. It would require me to push my abilities to their limits. I'm not sure what the consequences would be. Before Eric or Yara could respond, an alarm sounded. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the Xeraxian fleet entering the Riemann system. Eric looked at his mate, then at their extraordinary daughter. The weight of two civilizations hung in the balance, and the decision they made now would shape the future of both humanity and the Riemann people. Nova, Eric began, his voice thick with emotion. Whatever you decide, we'll support you. But remember, you're not just a weapon or a tool. You're our daughter, and we love you. Yara's tentacles curled around Nova's hand. Your father's right. This is your choice, but you don't have to face it alone. Nova took a deep breath, her eyes glowing with commitment. Then let's do this, she said, together. As the family prepared to face the Xeraxian threat, the ancient temple hummed with energy, the crystalline artifact pulsing in sync with Nova's heartbeat. The final battle for the fate of two civilizations was about to begin, with a remarkable hybrid child at its center. Nova's eyes flickered with grit as she faced her parents. I can do this, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility. but I'll need your help." Eric and Yara exchanged a glance, years of shared experiences and unspoken communication passing between them in an instant. They nodded in unison, turning back to their daughter. "We're with you, Nova," Eric said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What's the plan?" As Nova outlined her strategy to exploit the Xeraxian fleet's vulnerability, Dr. Parker and her team sprang into action, preparing the necessary equipment. The ancient temple thrummed with energy, the crystalline artifact at its heart pulsing in sync with Nova's accelerated heartbeat. "We'll need to act fast," Nova explained, her fingers tracing patterns in the air as she manipulated holographic projections of the Xeraxian ships. Their defensive systems recalibrate every few hours. This window of opportunity won't last long. Admiral Hawk's hologram flickered to life in the command center. "We've mobilized a joint human-Riemann strike force," he reported. "Emperor Zorn is coordinating with us directly. We're ready to move on your signal." As the team made final preparations, Nova's connection to the ancient artifact intensified. The crystal structure began to resonate with her energy signature, causing unexpected changes in her physiology. A soft, pulsating glow emanated from her skin, and the air around her crackled with potential. Dr. Parker's eyes widened as she monitored Nova's readings. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The artifact seems to be amplifying your abilities, Nova. Your energy manipulation capabilities are off the charts." Eric, now clad in the prototype battlesuit originally designed for Nova, ran through final system checks. The suit hummed to life, interfacing seamlessly with his enhanced physiology. Beside him, Yara's tentacles flickered with bioluminescence, her Riemann abilities now fully developed and primed for action. "Strike team, prepare for deployment." Admiral Hawk's voice crackled over the comm system. "Nova, initiate disruptive field on my mark." Nova took a deep breath, centering herself as she had learned from her mother's meditation techniques. She reached out with her mind, connecting to the pulsing energy of the artifact. As she did, her body began to flicker, shifting between her adolescent form and a more mature appearance. "Nova?" Yara called out, concern evident in her voice. "I'm okay," Nova responded, her voice strained but determined. "Just adjusting." 3, 2, 1, mark! Admiral Hawk's command cut through the tension. Nova unleashed her power, projecting a massive energy field that engulfed the approaching Xeraxian fleet. The alien ship's navigation system sputtered and failed, plunging the invasion force into chaos. Eric and Yara shared a quick embrace before joining their strike team. "Be careful," Nova called after them, her form flickering as she struggled to maintain the disruptive field. The human Riemann strike force launched, streaking towards the disoriented Xeraxian fleet. Eric led the charge, the prototype battlesuit enhancing his already formidable abilities. Yara moved in perfect synchronization with him, their mental link allowing for seamless coordination. As they approached the Xeraxian command ship, Eric's enhanced senses picked up the sound of defense systems powering up. "Incoming!" he shouted, maneuvering his team through a barrage of energy blasts. Yara's tentacles lashed out, deflecting projectiles and creating openings for the strike team to exploit. Eric and Yara moved as one, their complementary fighting styles forming a deadly dance as they carved a path through the Xeraxian defenses. Back at the temple, Nova's efforts to maintain the disruptive field took their toll. Her body aged rapidly, shifting between adolescent and adult forms as she channeled the immense power. Dr. Parker and her team worked feverishly to stabilize Nova's condition, their equipment struggling against the waves of energy pulsing through the ancient structure. On the Xeraxian command ship, Eric and Yara fought their way through twisting corridors, their mental link allowing them to anticipate each other's moves and cover blind spots. They reached the central control room, dispatching the last of the guards in a flurry of synchronized attacks. As the door slid open, they came face to face with the imposing figure of the Xeraxian Supreme Commander. The alien towered over them, its multiple limbs filled with advanced weaponry and cybernetic enhancements. "Humans," the Supreme Commander's voice reverberated through the chamber. "Your resistance is admirable, but futile. We offer you a choice. Withdraw your forces and surrender the hybrid child in the ancient artifact. In exchange, we will spare your worlds." Eric's grip tightened on his weapon, his enhanced muscles tensing beneath the battlesuit. Yara's tentacles flared with bioluminescent energy, her eyes narrowing as she regarded the Xeraxian leader. "Not a chance," Eric growled, his voice low and dangerous. The Supreme Commander's eyes narrowed, cybernetic implants whirring as it analyzed the human Riemann pair. "Then you leave us no choice," it declared, unfurling to its full height. Eric and Yara sprang into action, their movements a blur as they engaged the technologically superior Xeraxian leader. The battlesuit amplified Eric's strength and speed, allowing him to match the alien's cybernetic enhancements. Yara's Remen abilities came into play, her tentacles lashing out with precision strikes that disrupted the commander's systems. As the fight intensified, Eric and Yara pushed themselves to their limits, drawing upon their deepest reserves of strength and their unbreakable bond. They moved in perfect harmony, each anticipating the other's needs without a word spoken between them. Suddenly, a massive energy pulse ripped through the ship, temporarily disabling all systems. In the moment of darkness that followed, Eric and Yara knew instinctively what had happened. Nova had made her sacrifice. As emergency systems flickered back to life, Eric and Yara found themselves standing before the dormant Xeraxian quantum computer. The device held the key to ending the war. But at what cost? Their daughter's consciousness now merged with the ancient artifact, her physical form dissolved into pure energy. Eric's hand hovered over the computer's interface. Yara's tentacle intertwined with his fingers. They stood at the crossroads of two civilizations, the fate of humanity and the Riemann people hanging in the balance. But more than that, the life of their extraordinary daughter now depended on the choice they were about to make. The couple shared a look, years of shared hardships, triumphs, and love passing between them in a single glance. Whatever they decided, they would face the consequences together. Eric took a deep breath, his finger poised above the quantum computer's control panel. The choice before them would shape not only the outcome of the war, but the very future of human-Riemann relations and the life of their beloved Nova. "Daughter." Eric's finger hovered for a moment longer, then pressed down. The quantum computer hummed to life, its alien circuitry pulsing with an eerie blue glow. Eric and Yara shared a brief look of understanding, their mental link allowing them to communicate without words. They knew what had to be done. Eric's battlesuit interfaced seamlessly with the Xeraxian technology, streams of data flowing through his neural implants. He began navigating the complex alien systems, his augmented mind processing information at an unprecedented rate. Beside him, Yara channeled her Remen abilities, her tentacles radiating a soft bioluminescence as she manipulated the energy fields around the computer. Her efforts stabilized the connection, allowing Eric to delve deeper into the quantum network. As they worked in tandem, a virtual representation of the star system materialized around them. Eric's eyes widened as he saw countless points of light scattered across the holographic display. "Nova," he whispered, recognizing the unique energy signature of their daughter. Yara's tentacles twitched with anticipation. "Can we bring her back?" Eric nodded, his fingers dancing over the holographic interface. "We can try. It won't be easy, but if we can gather all these fragments..." Their concentration was shattered by a deafening roar. The Xeraxian Supreme Commander, having regained consciousness, lunged at them with cybernetic limbs extended. Eric spun to face the threat, his battlesuit systems responding instantly to his neural commands. He deflected the first blow, the suit's energy shields flaring as they absorbed the impact. "Keep working on Nova," Eric shouted to Yara as he engaged the Xeraxian leader in combat. Yara turned back to the quantum computer, her tentacles weaving intricate patterns in the air as she manipulated the energy fields. She focused on gathering the scattered fragments of Nova's consciousness, drawing them together within the virtual space. The command center became a chaotic battleground. Eric and the Supreme Commander traded blows, their enhanced bodies moving with incredible speed and precision. The battlesuit amplified Eric's strength, allowing him to match the alien's cybernetic enhancements. Sparks flew as Eric deflected a barrage of energy blasts from the commander's weaponized limbs. He countered with a series of rapid strikes, targeting the weak points in the alien's exoskeleton that he had identified during their earlier encounter. Yara, despite the chaos around her, maintained her focus on the delicate task of reconstructing Nova's essence. Sweat beaded on her brow as she painstakingly wove together the fragments of their daughter's consciousness. Suddenly, the quantum computer pulsed with renewed energy. A shimmering form coalesced within the holographic display. Nova, her virtual body radiating power and knowledge beyond her years. Nova's eyes snapped open, taking in the scene before her. In an instant, she grasped the situation. Her consciousness, now merged with the quantum computer, expanded to encompass the entire Xeraxian network. With a mere thought, Nova froze the Supreme Commander in mid-attack. The alien leader's cybernetic implants whirred uselessly as it found itself immobilized by an unseen force. "Mom! Dad!" Nova's voice echoed through the command center, a mixture of relief and newfound authority. "I've got this!" Nova's consciousness spread through the Xeraxian fleet like wildfire. Ship after ship fell silent, their weapon systems powering down and navigation controls locking up. In a matter of seconds, the entire invasion force was neutralized, left drifting harmlessly in space. Eric and Yara stared in awe at their daughter's holographic form, relief and joy washing over them. But their elation was tempered by concern for Nova's incorporeal state. "Nova," Yara said, her voice quavering, "can you come back to us?" Nova's virtual form smiled, a hint of her former mischievousness shining through. "I think so, Mom, but I'll need your help. Both of you." She explained her plan, detailing how she could use the Xeraxian technology in combination with the ancient Raymond artifact to reconstruct her physical form. However, she warned that the process would permanently alter her. Eric and Yara exchanged a glance, then nodded in unison. "Whatever it takes," Eric said firmly. Nova's holographic form began to pulse with energy. The quantum computer hummed louder, its circuits glowing brightly as it combined the genetic information from Eric and Yara with the unique energy patterns of Nova's hybrid nature. The command center was bathed in a blinding white light. When it faded, Nova stood before them. No longer a child, but a young adult who embodied the perfect balance of human and Raymond characteristics. Eric and Yara rushed forward, enveloping their daughter in a tight embrace. Tears streamed down their faces as they held Nova, marveling at her transformation. Their reunion was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Hawk and Emperor Zorn, who burst into the command center with weapons drawn. They stopped short at the sight before them, the neutralized Xeraxian Supreme Commander. The family locked in an embrace, and the palpable sense of a conflict drived. Nova turned to face the leaders, her new form radiating confidence and purpose. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying the weight of her expanded consciousness, "I believe it's time we discuss the future of galactic relations." As Nova began to outline her vision for a new era of interstellar cooperation, Eric and Yara stood hand in tentacle, watching their extraordinary daughter with pride. They had faced unimaginable challenges, but their love for each other and for Nova had not only endured, but had blossomed into something that would change the course of history. The Xeraxian Supreme Commander, still immobilized, looked on with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. As Nova spoke of using the quantum computer network to foster communication and understanding between all sentient species, even the alien leader began to see the potential for a different kind of future. Eric squeezed Yara's tentacle gently, feeling the familiar surge of love and connection through their mental link. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family and as part of a new, united galactic community.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.